What's up, you guys? Welcome to the channel. This is my first official video. I thought it would be good to start with what I've read so far in 2024 and maybe briefly touch on what I've read in 2023, but just to give you guys kind of a view of what I've read to date in recent times and how I felt about it. I'm going to be sharing very honest reviews on this channel. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, I have my Goodreads up. I'll put what I'm looking at on the screen. But this is just my 2023 in books. So you can see it's kind of all over the place. My favorites from last year were Lilac Girls, Demon Copperhead, and Book Lovers. So 3 very different books. Lilac Girls, I don't have it currently with me because my friend's borrowing it, but what I liked about that is that it was based in World War II, which I feel like could be its own genre, and maybe it already is, I don't know. But what I liked about this one specifically is that it's based on a true story. So there's crazy, heroic, insane things that happen in this book that actually happened in real life. And that is just so inspiring and mind-blowing to me. And it was just very deep and real and heartbreaking and gives you hope in humanity and also tears down that hope and builds it back up again. And it's just such a good book. So yeah, that's one that my friend's borrowing right now. Demon Copperhead, which I do have with me, it got a 5 from me, but it was very it had mixed reviews from a lot of people that I know in real life. Some of my friends hated it and some of my friends loved it. And I feel like I was able to go into it a little bit more level-headed, for lack of a better word, and give it a 5 because I had that heads up of it's really intense. It is not a walk in the park fluffy read at all. It's there's a lot of heartbreaking, sad, terrible things that happen in this book. And because I knew that going into it, I feel like I was able to appreciate it for what it is. If you have never heard of this book or don't know what it's about, it's basically the modern day version of David Copperfield. But when I say modern, I mean set in the 90s. And I had never read David Copperfield prior to this either, but it's basically a poor boy's journey. He lives in foster care, and it's told first person from his point of view in a country rural area. And it's literally his whole life. And so you see all the good, all the bad, all the worst of his life. I just fell in love with him as a character. When you're in first person, you're obviously hearing what he's thinking in that moment in real time. You get to know him very intimately, and you just have so much love for him, and you're rooting for him, and you want him to win. You want him to beat life. But yeah, definitely if you're not an intense reader, maybe skip it. I don't know. Read the back jacket, read the Goodreads reviews, and see what you think. I'm a little bit of a weirdo with that stuff because I'm very much an empath, but I feel books bother me less than TV shows. I've read books that I can't watch the TV show or movie for because that really messes with me. And I think it's seeing it visually and hearing the music, if it's scary or whatever, it just gets in my head. It bothers me. I cannot watch it. But I think when you're reading a book, you have some control over the visuals you create in your head when you're reading it or something. I don't know. That's to say, there's traumatic things that happened in this book, and I was able to read it and get through it, but I don't think I could watch it if this ever turned into a movie, if that makes sense. Just trying to give you a gauge on if you think you could handle the intensity of this or not. This is probably max for me of what I could read and still give a 5 kind of thing. And then Book Lovers was the other 5 that I gave in 2023. My mother-in-law read this book and gave it to me. It was my first Emily Henry. I loved this book. And it's so funny because one of the booktubers that I follow, this is her least favorite Emily Henry book, which is so surprising to me. And I am wanting to read more of the Emily Henry books and just more romance in general, so that maybe I can have a better gauge. Because part of me is maybe I gave this a 5 because it was basically the only non-heavy book I read in 2023. You know what I mean? But part of what I liked about this book was that because I like all things book, I like bookish things, the fact that both of these characters are in the book world, they're in publishing, that was right up my alley. The environment in this book kind of takes place both in New York City and like in a quaint town, which both of those things are like right up my alley. It also felt very not cheesy, for this type of book, like just a romance book, and maybe that's ignorant to say, I have not read a lot of romance really, and that's something that I'm wanting to read more of this year. But for example, I read People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and I hated that book. I did not like it. Now, granted, it had some tropes in it that are not my favorite. Like, I do not like back and forth timelines, and People We Meet on Vacation had that. And it also had the friends to lovers trope, which so far has not been my favorite. I mean, I know some people love that trope. It's just not for me. So those two things probably, no, definitely clouded my judgment in People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Book lovers, I think, is kind of considered either like enemies to lovers or maybe like frenemies to lovers, because I don't feel like they were full on enemies at the front or at the start. But I just like that trope better. Like, let's not spend half a novel establishing that we're just friends and like trying to convince everybody else of that, and then you end up getting together at the end. It just kind of feels like a long waste of time to me. Like, I don't know. Not my vibe. But this one, very much my vibe. It got a 5 for me in 2023, and I loved it. The rest of the books I read in 2023 either kind of got like a 3 or a 2. And also, I just realized I haven't shared this. I do have like a rating system that I go by, so I will put that on the screen. And I've been thinking about changing it just because a 1 for me is a DNF, which means do not finish. And I always finish a book. Even if I'm hating it, I finish it just to make sure that I really don't like it. And because I want to be able to say, no, I have read the whole thing and still don't like it, and have that discussion either in Goodreads or like with a friend who loved it. I love talking about books with like, and especially if someone else has like a different opinion. That is so fascinating to me. I love like dissecting that. Like, what did you like about it? What did you not like about it? But having said that, I don't know why I have a 1 star as the DNF, because I always finish. So basically, if a book has a 2 from me, that means that it's like as low as a star as it can get from me. But anyways, that's the rating system that I go by. So now let's get into the books that I've read so far this year. It is April, the beginning of April at the time that I'm filming this. Okay, the first book that I read in 2024 was Daisy Jones and the Six, which is a Reese's Book Club pick. You've probably heard of it. It is extremely popular, and I was very late to the game in reading it, and immediately after I finished it, I watched the entire TV series on it. I gave it a 4 because it wasn't just like the best thing I've ever read ever, but I did fly through it. Like, this was a page-turning book for me. If you don't know what it's about, it's basically almost like a documentary style telling of a rock band in the 70s. And I think that's another reason why I was able to fly through it so quickly, is because it's like an interview style. It's fictional, but it reads as if an older band in now present time is getting interviewed about their heydays. And so it's like all dialogue. And there's like a twist at the end, and it starts like the beginning of the book starts where like most rock star stories end. So that was very intriguing to me, because I was like, okay, well, where is this book going? Because this is how most, like, you know, like your stereotypical, like, tragic rock star stories and how those end. That's where this one started. So I was kind of like, okay, that's interesting. Like, where is this going to go? I also just really like Reese Witherspoon, so I definitely think that that influenced me in, like, picking this book. But yeah, so that was my first read, and it got a 4 from me. My second read was a book from my mother-in-law. She and I swap books all the time, and it was The Grapes of Wrath. She's trying to read some more of the classics, and so she gave this to me. I hated it. It got a 2 from me, and I will tell you why. I know a lot of people like would find this book boring solely based on like the environment and the pace, and it kind of was for me. That's not the only reason it got a 2, but that's part of it. And I know some people like that kind of thing is like interesting to them and it doesn't bother them at all. But like, just to give you the gist of it, it's set in the time frame of like the Great Depression, and it's tracking like one family who's one of a bajillion that are going like doing the Great Migration from Oklahoma to California to try to find work, try to find money, and try to survive. It's like they're all very poor, they're starving, a lot of people are getting sick. But like, for example, there's a chapter in the early parts of the book that the whole chapter is about a turtle that never comes back into significance. Maybe there's some symbolism I missed or something, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, if you want like a fast-paced like book, this is not it. There was a whole chapter about a turtle. But I feel like beyond that, because I can have patience for that if it's like a really good story and I'll like read it. You know what I mean? But Beyond that, I think part of what made it a 2 for me a little bit is how stereotypical the characters are, especially between men and women. Like, I don't want to spoil it in case you do want to read it and like read through the classics or whatever, but the men like made so many of the decisions, and the one like female heroine that was in the book, she just fit into such a stereotypical mold that it's like she still submits to the male characters, who most of them were freaking idiots. And I don't know, it was just one of those things that's like very obvious to me that this was written by a white male in the 1930s. And maybe I've just gotten spoiled with like modern day authors, but I hated this book. And that's just my honest opinion about it. Not to mention the ending. I won't spoil it. If you know, you know. Weirdest ending I've ever read to a book, ever. Like, if you don't want to read this book, just go spoil it for yourself. Maybe just like read the last page for yourself. I was like, excuse me, like what is happening? If you know what I'm talking about, comment below and let me know if that also sent you, because I was like, all of everything we've read, 400 and something pages, and it ends with this in a barn with go spoil it for yourself. So after that depressing book, I had to read something light and fluffy that didn't mean anything. And it was also the beginning of February, so I decided to read To Love and to Loathe. This same thing was not a book that I picked out for myself. Basically, my cousin was accidentally given this book, like this book club or something that she's a part of sent her the wrong book and they didn't want the book back, and she didn't want to read this one, so she just gave it to me. And February 1st rolled around and it was the only romance that I had on my nightstand. So that's literally how this book came to be in my hands, how I read it. And I'm just telling you guys that because for a long time I've had a huge stack on my nightstand of books that people have given to me, and I've just been trying to get through those, or at least dwindle the pile a little bit before I go pick out more books on my own. But that is how I have read books for a while, and I think that's why I'm starting to hone in, like, okay, when I go get my next like book shopping haul, I want to be very like particular about the books that I get and read, because I've just read a lot of what people have given to me, and like a lot of them have not been good picks for me, or like they're not my favorite, and I just want to start getting back into books that make me like page turn and I can't put it down. Like, I want to get back into that. I'm very close to that. Just putting that out there. Like, we are about to get back on like great book vibes. Do you know what I mean? In the meantime, here's To Love and to Loathe by Martha Waters. I think this got a 3 for me. It was just kind of an read, like nothing amazing. I probably won't ever think about it again, but it was like a much needed palate cleanser after The Grapes of Wrath. And I'm not quite sure, but I think Martha Waters has kind of like some popular books out. Like, I had never heard of her until my cousin gave me this, but she has a lot of books that seem to be in this like Pride and Prejudice era. Like, this one's called To Love and to Loathe. I think she has another one called To Have and to Hoax. Let me see what some of her other ones are called. Oh, maybe there's a series, because these have like on Goodreads, they have like number 1, number 2. Oh, you know what? I bet it is. Okay, so number 1, it says To Have and to Hoax, The Regency Vows, number 1. Then To Love and to Loathe, The Regency Vows, number 2. To Marry and to Meddle, The Regency Vows, number 3. And To Swoon and to Spar, The Regency Vows, number 4. Okay. Oh, it goes on. To Woo and to Wed, The Regency Vows, number 5. And then it looks like she's got a Christmas book out. The epiphany I had a couple seconds ago is that there was another couple at the beginning of this book that was like friends with the couple, like the main people in this book. And I bet that other couple is from book 1, since this is book 2. I am an actual Pride and Prejudice lover. I've read the book, seen the movie, the limited series. Keira Knightley raised me. I actually have a lot of love and respect for like Jane Austen and Sense and Sensibility. My mom and I, like, that was my childhood, was watching those movies with her. This is one of those books that I don't love because it just kind of like, there's like unnecessary, I mean, it's basically just like a spicy read, and I don't love that. There's no like real like depth or like meaning. It's literally just a spicy read set in the Regency era. So like, I don't love that. Put some respect on Jane Austen's name. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's funny because Emily Henry has a quote on this book. It says, "Sweet, sexy, and utterly fun." But I like Emily Henry's writing better. I think it's so, like, Emily Henry is so funny to me. Very clever. Very like modern day of how people speak. So yeah, this one got a 3. Like I said, was a good palate cleanser after Grapes of Wrath. Will probably never recommend it to anyone, or think about it again. The next book I read that I don't have on me right now, but I'll pull it up on Goodreads, is this book called Breakthrough Advertising. So I think I mentioned this in my intro video, maybe I didn't, but I work for a marketing agency full time. And my boss gave this to us to read, just to kind of further educate ourselves and try to make our ads better and stuff like that. But I had never heard of this book, and it is wild. It's out of print, so I think it's kind of hard to get your hands on, and it has like changed business owners' lives. It's crazy. My boss got these for like $125 per book for the team, but I think on eBay it goes for upwards of $800. I'm not joking. Like, look that up. We spent like a whole week reading it and taking notes and like applying that and everything. But that was kind of like a little educational nonfiction read that I had this year. And it was very insightful. Like, for it being borderline like a textbook, the most interesting textbook I've ever read by far. But I'm also, like I said, I'm in marketing, so it was very interesting to me. If you don't care anything about marketing, I don't know why it'd be interesting to you, or if you're not like a business owner, but if you're either of those things, maybe check it out. And then the last book that I've read so far this year that I just finished is The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. I was so excited to read this. I have seen it everywhere. Seen it all over Instagram, all like on the front tables at Barnes & Noble, at all the bookstores. It was a huge February book club pick I saw for a bunch of different book clubs, which is when I started reading it. It's been called the modern day To Kill a Mockingbird, which I think I read To Kill a Mockingbird in high school, but even if I did, I don't really remember the story. So I've basically been saying I haven't read it because I don't even remember it. This book got a 3 from me, and this was the book, and like I said, I just finished it, but this was the book that kind of made me start thinking either that literary fiction is not my favorite genre, or that I have read too much literary fiction back to back in the last 4 years without really switching it up genre-wise. Maybe I need to either like switch it up more or just like take a break. I don't know. Basically, if you don't know, this takes place in a small town in Pennsylvania in America around the time that Hitler is coming into power. So the book is kind of centered around Jews, blacks, whites, all living together most of the time, like not harmoniously in this small town in that time period. So there's like turmoil for a lot of people back home in Europe, and they've just moved to America, or there's people that have been struggling in America for a long time already. And some of the things that were a little bit hard for me that I saw were difficult for other people too on Goodreads is the amount of characters. Like, there are so many characters, and each of them, you pause the plot, like the main plot, and you get into the origin story of this character. So if you like fast pacing, doing that slows the pacing down on this book quite a bit. When I finally kind of realized like what the main plot line of this story was going to be, I don't remember exactly what page number it was, but I was really deep into this book before I realized like where the main plot was going, beyond just describing what was happening at the time, like beyond describing the environment and beyond describing these characters and beyond describing how these characters know each other. What is like the main plot of this book? It took me a while to like understand what that was going to be. And another thing about this book that I have noticed, it's not just this book, but has been the case for a lot of literary fiction books that I've read, is that they throw in something just like absolutely traumatic at the end, like in the last 100 pages. And a lot of times, in my opinion, it's not necessary to the plot. Like, you could take that out and we would still feel deeply for this character, and we would still understand like the tragic times. We didn't need to also read this like literal, vile, disgusting thing that happens to this character. I don't want to spoil it. I'm not going to say what it is. But I found that to be the case for a lot of literary fiction. And I don't know how you guys feel, but something else that I've been reading surrounding that, like in the book community, is the lack of warnings in a book. Like, a lot of people who are reading these books are unfortunately victims, and they stumble across these books like at the very end, reading what's happened to them, and it's like very triggering and very upsetting. Or even if you're not a victim, like, not everybody wants to read that, you know what I mean? And there's no warning unless you just want to like spoil things for yourself on Goodreads or something. And like I said, I'm not dogging just this book because that's been the case for a lot of literary fiction books for me. And I don't know. I think people just respond to that in different ways. There's some people, like I just said, I've seen a lot of people share that opinion on Goodreads of like, we need a trigger warning or something like in the book jacket. Other people, I don't think it bothers them at all. And they're like, that was real life. And I get like if it actually happened, if it's a true story or something, or if it has more like of a tie to the plot. But if I feel like a lot of times authors put it in there to like show the reality of like what happened in those times, or like what or to show how bad things are. And when it's a fictional book, and especially when you've already created like a very tragic environment, I think a lot of times it can be inferred. I don't need to read it like word for word. Do you know what I mean? So those were my only qualms. And another thing too that I will say, because I struggled giving this a 3, I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to give it a 4 or a 5 or something because of like the gravity of it, but I struggled reading it because of the things I've listed, like the pacing and then the traumatic part at the end. I gave it a 3. But sometimes I also wish that I could have like different categories of 5s, because like I said, like these 2 books got 5s from me for completely different reasons. And sometimes I wish that I could be like, there's page turning, can't put it down, makes you so happy 5s. And then there's 5s of like, wow, this is an insanely deep story. It's a story that needs to be told. And specifically for this book, James McBride, this is my first James McBride that I've read. I have other books of his on my TBR. I was so excited to read the story from him because what I've read about him, like people praise his work. Like I just wanted to love this book more. But anyways, that said, like books like these that are like really intense, tragic, heroic, like just like I said, intense reads of a character in a certain time period, I feel like that just needs a different kind of criteria. It's hard to have the same like 1 to 5 criteria across all books. Do you know what I mean? And going off of that, the last thing I'll say about this book too is that because I'm starting to learn that maybe literary fiction is not like my genre, I didn't want to like rate it unfairly. Like I'm telling you guys, I wanted to rate this higher because I've just seen so much praise for it everywhere. But yeah, for me, it was a 3. That's just my honest opinion. I wanted to like it more. And there were parts of it that I really found interesting. But yeah. And then I will wrap up with what I'm reading currently. One thing that I've kind of taken a break from, but I need to pick it back up, is Jackie Hill Perry's Upon Waking. It's a devotional, a daily devotional. I got through 34 of them. If you don't know who Jackie Hill Perry is, she's all over Instagram. She's a great speaker. My friend Mia put me on this one because she started doing it. It's a 60-day devotional. But I just kind of got sidetracked reading other things and my morning routine kind of changed. But I need to get back on this because I do want to finish this. The first 34 that I have read they're short, but they're so value-packed, very impactful. Would highly recommend this book if you're trying to like turn around your mindset and start your day on the right foot. This will definitely help you do that. And one thing that I also love about this book is that she makes it very clear at the beginning that this is not to replace Bible reading time. This doesn't replace the Bible. It just helps you like in your daily walk and understanding and kind of framing your mindset for the day. So once I finish this, I will let you guys know. And then I just started reading The Outer Banks House by Diane Ducharme. I don't really know if I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering it. My mother-in-law gave me this book. I will show you guys. I'll put in a clip of all the books on my nightstand. It was more. You guys have no idea. I started out with like 15 books on my nightstand. That was a collection of books that Craig's mom gave to me. Craig's my husband, obviously. And books that I had just picked up over the years from bookstores or like, you know, that my cousin gave to me or whatever. And I have been chipping away at these books trying to like dwindle the pile. So the pile that you're seeing is shorter than what it started out being. But anyways, I'm only about 38 pages into this one. I literally just started it. I'm trying to finish it before my next bookstore trip, but this one already is just a little bit more like up my alley, just solely based on settings. So I'm very biased because the Low Country is one of my favorite places on earth. Anywhere along that southeast coastline, like Charleston, Savannah, St. Simon's. Just has my heart. If I'm not there, I long to be there, literally. So with this being on the North Carolina coastline, in all the descriptions, she's like living in a cottage right on the ocean. I was like, yes, honey, put me there. Let me teleport myself. So I will let you guys know what I think about this book when I finish it. In the meantime, make sure that you guys subscribe. I don't currently have an Instagram for this, but I will probably make one. So if I do, I will link it. Make sure you guys follow me there for like current book updates and things. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.